Welcome back to the 2-Pointers podcast. I'm Trevor Everett, and today we're joined first time in a while with Chris O'Brien. He's got some really cool stuff going on the last couple of months that I want to talk to him about. Voice the last couple of weeks has been in and out. You'll hear that again. Don't forget to check out the last pod with Grayson Hill. We did our midseason awards that we always do after the All-Star break because it makes sense. 50 games in, right? That's really the midway point for the NBA anyway. Without further ado, let's talk to Chris O'Brien today. Ball Game Podcast, social media, all that stuff will be linked in the description below. But since the last time I saw you, you've been doing some cool things. So let's talk about that for a few minutes. Before we do that, introduce yourself for those that might be new here or checking it out for the first time or something like that.
Yeah, I'm Chris, host of the Ball Game Podcast with a few of my friends. We're covering the NBA and NFL. So this was good timing for me that you asked me to come on because football season just ended. Football season did very, very, very well for us, but got to kind of get my mind back into basketball. I'm not gonna lie, I've been slacking with watching basketball. I'm a basketball kid first. I played basketball my whole life. I never played football, but football just did well for us content-wise, so I locked in on that. It's the least I've watched basketball probably my whole life up until the All-Star break. So got to get my mind back on the basketball. So this was good timing.
You guys got to do hockey now. Did you watch last night? For those that are
was crazy.
recording,
that was
we were recording
nuts.
This Friday morning after the U.S.-Canada Four Nations game. So any quick part hockey thoughts
the
here?
Last 4 minutes and the overtime was it was insane. I mean, they were saying on the broadcast too, like the coaches were probably pissed because it was just so sloppy defensively, but they were letting them rip the shots on goal. It was a crazy game. Sucks we didn't come out on top, but that was a crazy game.
It's just cool to see like America rally around a sport like other than football. It was kind of cool. Like there was journalists all over the country that were flying in that were like, I was in this airport and not hockey beds, and all of a sudden, like people were talking about this game. Like, and it's very funny because it's a round robin, so it wasn't like a real like elimination style tournament. So like technically that wasn't like both teams were undefeated going into that game, but it was just cool. Like I'm a big Canes fan being here in Raleigh, and it was really neat to see a Canadian and a U.S. guy go after each other and be frustrated with each other when they're teammates for 82 games a year. It's pretty sick. It was just an all around great thing. Didn't mean to spring hockey on you in the first 2 minutes, but last night was kind of a monumental night for sports and just
it was crazy. Even though like qualifying rounds like over the weekend, I was at work at the bar, and I mean the game was like probably like 10 minutes until the first game, the USA and Canada, when we beat them.
Mm-hmm.
It's like probably like 10-15 minutes before the game started. I had like maybe 4 or 5 tables at the time. Every single one of them asked me, "Are you putting the game on? Are you putting the game on?" It's like,
it's crazy.
Yeah, I'll put the game on. Do you want your drinks? Like, let me get you your drinks, and then the game will be on. But everyone was asking, like, make sure you put the game on. Make sure you put the game on. So it was interesting to see because I didn't think people really like hockey like that. And I don't think it really was a hockey thing. I think it was more of just a USA pride thing. So it was 100%. Cool.
Yeah, I think you're in a hockey town too, right? You're up near the city, right? So I think that really helps. Rangers fans are kind of crazy anyway. But enough hockey. Let's talk for a few minutes. Look, you guys have been growing exponentially, and I've been following along as best I could. Anytime I get a chance to tune into a show, it's been really cool to just see where you guys have gone. I remember the old white table in that basement right from the start. Those were some fun shows back in the day. And look, I mean, I won't sugarcoat anything. To go to the Super Bowl and to just be in that environment as a media member, just talk me through the last couple of weeks, how that went.
Yeah, I mean, it came on us. We got invited with the Game Day. I don't know if you've ever heard of the Game Day, but shout out to those guys over there. So we were doing work for them, kind of just getting video content out for them, and they had a partnership with Caesars. So everything we did was through Caesars. So a lot of media members, if you guys are into NFL and Super Bowl time, a lot of the media members were doing their media stuff at Radio Row in the convention center. And typically that's where we would have been. But since we were with Caesars, we recorded our podcast live from the casino. We were able to record, I don't know if you guys check out our TikTok, but we were able to do content of the gameplay in the casino, which I just thought that was the coolest thing, because that's typically like frowned upon in the casinos. No recording, no phones at the table, it's the whole 9 yards. So we were recording roulette gameplay, slots gameplay, all that fun stuff. So it was cool. And then just the media part of it. I mean, we were there at opening night on the field, and we had no idea that we were going to be on the field for opening night. We were under the impression that we were going to have media credentials for like Tuesday and Wednesday in the convention center when they did their like normal press conference style stuff. We were under the impression that we were going to be at opening night just as guests and in the stands, and we had our credentials on. So we were like, let's just see if we could get on the field and see what happens. We went down there, and we were down there the whole time. So it was shocking. It was the first time I've ever done something like that. I mean, I've met, a few NBA players in my life, but doing it as media, like it was nerve-wracking for sure. But we did like our first questions with Zach Bond on the Eagles. Shout out to Zach. But how it works is they have an hour each of like media time. So the Eagles came out first. So we went to Zach Bond first, and we were there for like 15 minutes maybe, just trying to get a question out, because we didn't know how it really works. And it's not really them calling on you. It's you kind of just gotta, when he ends his last question, you gotta yell your question out and just stick it through and hope he makes eye contact with you. So once we figured it out though, how it goes, we kind of got rolling, and it was an awesome experience. I mean, everyone in New Orleans, the players, the other people making content that we met, and just even the locals of New Orleans, everyone, we kept saying it, everyone we met in the days we were down there was just super awesome, super willing to, participate in the content. So it was really cool. It was cool that everyone was down there kind of doing the same thing.
Yeah, look, from everybody I talked to, it just seems like one of the perfect cities to host. Like everything, like everybody is there for that week, and it is geared towards that event. Even if the game wasn't good, you didn't know that, right? It's cool to hear about how the media part works with like talking to like you said to Zach. And look, if it's anything like a college basketball conference tournament, where you're in those rooms, the rooms are small, and you're trying to yell a question. I can't even imagine that tenfold when it comes to the NFL and how tight media can be with that. So it's really cool, man. I'm really happy for you guys. Almost 3K on YouTube, so I'll link that below. TikTok's up to 1.2 million likes, all kinds of crazy stuff, man. So 17K on TikTok. Thank goodness that platform didn't die, right? But look, it's been really, really cool. Obviously, I know you said football's kind of been the engaged sport for you, but we're going to talk some basketball today. I know you've been watching it still. I know how you are with this stuff. And look, college basketball's taking my time away from the NBA, and it's on. It's been fun to keep up with and flipping back and forth between the two. I've been trying to convince my wife for a second TV in the living room for like 3 years.
Yeah,
we just catch up. We just catch up on League Pass. We'll figure it out. Unfortunately, we were going to start with teams that can flip the script down the stretch here, because every year there's an NBA team that does that. Before we do, let's jump into unfortunate news. Victor Wembanyama out for the season with a blood clot in his shoulder. This is obviously something that's scary. Blood clots, you have to take them seriously, especially with somebody who as unique of a body type as him. Like, I'm sure that they just are taking him extra careful care because of that. And just, when you're going to be a center, you're going to be hitting guys, even if he stretches the floor. So you just got to be really careful with something like this. This is obviously just erring on the full side of caution, even if it isn't like super severe. I do want to ask you though, in all sincerity, I mentioned this on the last pod, the midseason awards. If he had played 65 games, would you have voted for him for Defensive Player of the Year? Like, with this injury, because he's at like 45, I think, or something like that. He's still well short. So let me ask it this way. If the game requirement didn't apply and you had a vote at the end of the year, would you still give it to him?
I think as things stand right now, yeah, I probably would. I just feel like
it's insane to even think about, isn't it?
Yeah, no, I don't think anyone else has really stood out individually the way he has up to this point. I mean, the Thunder are on pace for an all-time great defense as a team, but it's as a team. Chet would probably be up there if he had been playing all year, but Thunder, you can't really point out one guy specifically. It's kind of a team effort. Same thing with the Rockets. The Rockets have been a great defensive team, but there's really no one on their team individually that sticks out. I think Anthony Davis would probably be my next guy up, maybe an Evan Mobley, but I just think Victor Wembanyama was far and away the defensive player of the year up until this point. So as things stand right now, I wouldn't even have to think about it.
Dyson Daniels had a great year. I know it kind of clouds the fact that the team is middle of the pack. They're ninth right now as we're recording this on Friday, February 21st. The team's just starting to get restarted here. But like I said it the other day, like what he's doing from just a individual like game impact standpoint is something that like you just have to watch the games and go. There's plays where like guys will swing the ball around the top of the key and like you can see them thinking about where he is. Like it's insane.
You even
It's stuff that
saw
we
it.
haven't.
Yeah, you even saw it on Sunday night in the All-Star game. And I know, we're going to talk about the All-Star game.
A lot of people didn't see that, but I'm with you.
Yeah, but in a game with all the best players in the world, there were even times where these guys were going down there. They see him down there, and it's just like, nope, I'm good. So
It's crazy.
just, I mean, he is Hall of Fame intimidator, like in 2K. Like he's just, it's deeper than the stats with him, and like the box score stats jump off the page too. I mean, what's he averaging? Over 3 blocks per game, something like that.
He leads the league again, and he probably will by the end of the year. He'll probably still lead the league in blocks, which is
so like the box score stats are outrageous too, but it's crazy that the box score stats are so great, and it goes so much deeper than that. Just the overall impact and deterrence he has, steering people away from the rim. So yeah.
3.8 blocks per game, up from 3.6 last year, both league leading, and doing it. I mentioned this the other day on 2.2 fouls last year and 2.3 fouls this year. So he's not fouling either. Like it's like reaching levels of, and I have talked about him all year without even bringing up an advanced stat because there's really no reason for it. If you watch the games and you watch, like even last night they played Phoenix without him, and you can just you can feel the void. Like you can feel the void that team doesn't. It felt like the team the year before they got him, where a bunch of young guys we all kind of like. Obviously, you throw in a couple of vets, Chris Paul there, KD beefing. I don't know what that was all about, but but just majority young guys on that team, and it just feels like it. They feel more mature. Don't get me wrong. Obviously, I think that's a testament to Chris Paul and Victor, but like it just felt like that young team trying to figure it out again. They feel lost without him. And so it'll be interesting to see how they as a team figure it out. But like he was rookie of the year last year. He was second in defensive player of the year voting, playing 71 games. He played 46 in total is the final number. But I mean, that's really close to the number. I think 50 was it 65 now. So I mean, I say really close. All he's got to do is play 20 of the last 31 games. It's like it's a lot closer than people think. And obviously the rules are the rules now. But somebody's going to win it. And like my buddy Grayson that was on here with the midseason award pod, he made a great point. Like, depending on, we'll get to really learn what voter fatigue is like over the next 5 to 7 years, because this award, like they may have to split it into guards forwards eventually. Like it may get to a point where we go, okay, it can't be him again, but he's going to get better. Yeah. Like it's crazy. So it's a legit question. I didn't mean to start it out with a sad, somber note, but Wemby's out.
Keep them out of the plane, put them in the lottery. Maybe the script writers are on their side and they win the draft lottery, and then things get real scary.
People are already talking about the possibilities of where this could be heading with Cooper and Victor, and I'm like, I'm good. It's a lottery ball. The lottery ball has to happen whether you think it's rigged or not. All right. Let me run through some stuff on teams that can flip the script. I pulled basically the last 30 games of a season over the last half decade, just to kind of give you an idea of where my mind is going with this question. Something I like to talk about every year because there is literally always a team. The poster child example in the last 7 years, I won't go through it all, but the poster child example is Boston in 2020. I guess it would have technically been 2022. Yeah, 223. They went. The record doesn't say anything, which is crazy because like from New Year's Day on, they were like a stupid record. But from the final 30, when I pulled it,
they played the Knicks but they played the Knicks in the Garden that year, and RJ Barrett hit a game winner. Evan Fournier scored 40 points in the game. I was there in the Garden, craziest game I've ever seen live with my own 2 eyes. But that was whatever date that was. I think it was like mid to late December. It was. From that date on, that's when the Celtics kind of figured it out. RJ Barrett just fixed them.
That is crazy that you can recall the moment too, because like you're right. Basically, from the time the calendar turned, I'm sure we can pull that game up here in a minute. But If you want to look for the date too, that'd be awesome while I'm reading these stats off. But they're the poster child, right? Like Ime Udoka, whatever happened that year before all of the offseason stuff with him, like that team just absolutely flipped the script and it changed their whole season. They almost won an NBA championship because of it. I'm still trying to figure it out 2 years later. I'd love to keep talking to Celtics
January
folks.
6th, 2022.
Yeah, that was around the time that yeah. I mean, I mentioned the New Year as the starting point because the stat is just like it's stupid, their record from the New Year. But the final 30 games, they went 15-10 that year, along with the Lakers, Sixers, and Bulls. Last year, just for context, the Nuggets. The reason I'm bringing this up too is there's some teams in there that are kind of what we're looking for, and I'm eventually going to get to asking you who you think it is. But the point being is like last year, the Rockets went 16-9 the final 30 games, and now look at them, right? Now they're vying for a top. They potentially could be a 4 seed in the NBA playoffs. Like it's a real thing to keep an eye on how teams improve year to year. Boston is kind of the other example. Last year, they were 20-5 because they were just dominant throughout the entire season. So like that doesn't give you a flip the script team. If anything, they kind of flipped the script the other direction and lost 5 games if you really want to look at it that way. Denver was 18-7 and 22-23. The best example in 21-22 was the Heat. They were 17-8, and that was basically what propelled them down the stretch that season. Got them. I think that was the year they went really deep as well. One of the years they went really deep with Butler there. In 2021, the Warriors, Hawks, and Nets. The Hawks would go on to make the Eastern Conference Finals with Trae Young that year. They went 16-9. A couple other teams went 17-8. But again, I'm plucking the one that we can all think about. In 2019-20, believe it or not, there was actually only one team that had basically a reputable record above 500. That was the Lakers, and they would go on to win the championship that season, 17-8. They did flip the script that year as well. I did say I'd say all of them. I'm already on the last one, so let's just do the last one. 18-19, it was Rockets, Bucks. Those were 2 really good teams that year. I think that was one of the last years the Rockets really blew up. The interesting ones, Warriors, Clippers, and Spurs. All 3 of those teams had decent playoff runs. So the point being, I'm not plucking anything in particular out of those. I'm just giving you the history of why I'm asking this question because I think it's a great thing to think about. Who is the flip the script team? Who is the one you're planting your flag in and saying they're going to flip the script? Let's say they're below hosting a home playoff game right now.
Okay.
First round. So 4 seed and below, 5 seed and below.
The one that sticks off the page at me is the Clippers. Clippers are the 6th seed right now. They're 31-24, so I don't think they really need to flip too much. They're in prime position to be a playoff team, but I think the way James Harden's been playing this season, facilitating that offense, the ascension of Norman Powell, the ascension of a guy like Zubac, who's just been incredible for them and incredible in terms of adapting his game to play alongside a guy like James Harden. And then it's tough to do, but I still believe in Kawhi Leonard, the basketball player. I think he's been solid for them since coming back, for Kawhi Leonard standards anyway. He's been solid. I think he scored 25 last night. But if that guy could flip the script and stay healthy and be, playing like a top 10 to 15 player in the league, the way Ty Lue coaches, I mean, he's year in and year out the most underrated coach in the NBA, I feel like. And with all the role players around them, it's really dependent on Kawhi because they've been a good to great team without Kawhi for most of the year and him kind of easing his way back these last couple of weeks. So I think if Kawhi could hit his stride, I think the Clippers become a team that I wouldn't say they're a contender because it's a Kawhi Leonard team. We know what happens with Kawhi Leonard teams. But if I'm, the Grizzlies, I'm the Rockets, sitting atop the Western Conference, I do not want to play the Los Angeles Clippers in the first round. Not at all. So I think the Clippers could go on a little run here to end the season, and they can maybe even jump into that top 3 to 4 seeds in the West.
I think it's a great answer. I think it's one of the best ones because their offensive rating right now, like pre anything really getting going, is 19th, but they're 3rd in defense. Right. So like they have something that they can at least rely on in these close games down the stretch. And honestly, I'd be far-fetched to think I have anything to add because I think the entire case you laid out with Harden, and then like you said, even preseason, it was all okay. What's Kawhi's timeline? What's Kawhi's? I mean, because we really were thinking at one point, like if he just injured again, is he done? But he's clearly fine. Right. It's just a matter of what the injury was.
Can he stay healthy? Right.
And he can sustain it. Correct. Yep. And so like that's a really great example of like, okay, it's this guy, maybe plucking the example out and to be like, here's my reasoning. I don't think there's an Eastern Conference team. So let's just go with the fact that let's just lay that out now that the Bucks, they're fifth. So I don't really think they count because I said, not top 4 seed, but Pistons, are they kind of the flip the script team and they get up there with Indiana? I just think Indiana's more talented. I think that gap should kind of sustain itself.
Yeah,
That was the one
I
I would
mean,
kind of circle in the East.
it's only what, a 2.5 game gap right now, so it's not even
Right.
really flipping the script for the Pistons. I think they could get up there, but how
It's
much
incredible.
better can the Pistons be than they've already been so great and exceeded every expectation. Like, I don't know if it could get much better for them. I do think they could sustain what they've been doing, and if they move up, I think it would be more of a product of the Pacers probably like falling off a little bit than the Pistons improving on what they've already been. So yeah, I
Which
was
I
looking
would be
out
surprised
east.
by that.
It's tough. Yeah, yeah, for
So my
sure.
answer out west, if I didn't have to say the Clippers, uh, I think the Timberwolves. Maybe it's an Anthony Edwards. Just maybe you call it the adjustment of making that trade midseason, and they're figuring themselves out. Whatever you'd think of Randall, obviously determine your answer in that, I'm sure. But Minnesota has a case to just get themselves figured out. I think they're just. I wouldn't call it an identity crisis by any means, but like teams are targeting Ant defensively every single night. They're targeting him offensively every single night as well, and putting so much pressure on him to get the job done, and he has, which is incredible. But 31-25, which is insane to think that record in the East would be fourth and they're ninth
Yeah.
or they're seventh, excuse me. So I just don't think Dallas, because of all the uncertainty and the injuries, I think that they're just starting to free fall. Sacramento, talk about uncertainty. I'm not sure the certainty of that franchise for the next 6 months, much less 6 weeks. Golden State, maybe it's a Curry run. I'm just doing this to eliminate all these teams. Then we can talk about Minnesota for a second. Phoenix
The
at the
Warriors were
11.
probably the second team I was looking at outside of the Clippers, just because they've been so damn not bad. Like they're a 500 team, but for their standards, for having Steph Curry, they've been so bad. And getting a guy like Jimmy Butler, like it should only help. Like, I'd be shocked. I mean, they're below 500 right now, if I'm not mistaken. Right, they're 1 game under.
They're 28-27, so just
Okay, so
above.
they're 1 game over, but I'd be shocked if this team doesn't finish the season probably like 5 games over 500. Honestly,
Which at that
I
point
think
in the
they,
West, is that a play-in team? That's probably a play-in team, right?
yeah, yeah,
I mean, look, and that just shows
like
you. I think the West is that deep. It's deep with teams that
right,
eventually maybe that honestly though, because of the way things shake out, like somebody's slipping. It's just a matter of when, right? Like the Lakers Luka thing, they got to figure that out. Houston, these young guys are playing great, but I don't know if that sustains itself. So like, there's a
right,
lot of jockeying, but that's the thing people have to remember is that 7 through 9 area. Like that's not of just like you still have to go to the play-in. Even if we think Golden State quote unquote flipped the script, they're still a play-in team. They still have to play
right,
eventually either Denver or Memphis. And so it's like, or Denver or Oklahoma City. It's like it's a stupid
right,
reward for being so good to end the season.
yeah, yeah.
Phoenix really quick. Every time I watch them, I think I'm going to be in. I think I'm going to be like, okay, they're figuring things out, whatever. But I'm just at a loss for what this team is and isn't doing. Any
They,
Phoenix thoughts? I know they just played last night, but
oh man, it's sad. It's honestly sad because KD is so damn good still. He's so great, but it's everything outside of KD. I mean, even a guy like Devin Booker, I saw someone, I don't know who, so sorry, I'm not giving you credit, but someone was tweeting about this last night. Like, Devin Booker, he's still putting up stats, but Devin Booker doesn't look engaged at all. Like, I know Devin Booker could be so much better than what he's been so far this season. Bradley Beal was just such a miss for this team. And don't get me wrong, I still think Bradley Beal is a damn good basketball player. He could score the ball like not a lot of guys in the league can, but how valuable are you to a team that already has 2 of the top 10 scorers in the association? And then the surrounding parts around them just don't fit and don't play complementary basketball the way they should. I mean, you look at a guy like Tyus Jones, who was thought to be one of the missing pieces for this team, being that facilitator for them. And he's just been not good, especially on the defensive side of the ball. He's a guy who gets picked on constantly. I mean, Nurkic obviously was a complete failure for this team. He's out the door now. Now we're going with Nick Richards at center. Like the complementary pieces in the roster building was just so poor. And I mean, did Ryan Dunn play last night? Like I don't think Ryan Dunn stepped on the court last night. And this is
Let's
a guy
take a
who's
look.
probably the best defender on the roster.
He's without a doubt the best defender on the roster. Yeah.
Right. And I'm like 90% sure he did not play second last night.
I'm pulling it up now. So
And you've Tyus Jones out there shooting 1 for 6.
So last night, for those that are listening to this, maybe a day or so later, they played the San Antonio Spurs without Victor Wembanyama, and they lost 109 to 120. And it looks like Ryan Dunn played 20 seconds.
That's just unacceptable. That's unacceptable.
Bol played 9:47, by the way. It's insanity. I know the offense with Dunn is still being figured out, but like he had some stretches earlier this year where he was an incredible offensive player. Like it's in there, but like this is the same guy that teams he wouldn't even look at. I've made this point before. At Virginia last year, he wouldn't even look at the 3-point. He wouldn't even look at the basket when he had the ball 25 feet away. And so, like for him to even be viably playing on an NBA roster that's trying to compete for a play-in or potentially a playoff spot, and for him to play 20 seconds, I'm with you. I think it's ridiculous. Like his defensive impact alone, he could have been on. Who? I guess the question would be, who would they have put him on last night? Like Keldon Johnson. I feel like he's so good on the ball that they just have to figure out a team that he would really be granted they lost, so I'm obviously making excuses here, but like there just wasn't maybe an offensive player alone that they felt like they needed to stick him on. Maybe I'm not defending Budenholzer.
I mean, even throw him on a guard. I mean, Fox was killing them. Like throw him on Fox for not even to be like the whole game. I mean, the guy played 20 seconds.
It's fair.
He's too valuable defensively on a team that lacks defense. Like I said, you have Tyus Jones getting picked on night after night, Bradley Beal and Grayson Allen coming off the bench getting picked on. Like I don't know, man.
They're bottom 3.
It's bad for them.
It's bad.
Yeah, and I've seen after this loss trending on Twitter all morning how they were 8-0 when they first made the KD trade, and it was KD, Book, Ayton, and CP3 playing together. They didn't lose a game, and they just gave up on that to go get Bradley Beal. So
roster construction is one of those baffling things in the NBA right now. Okay, really quick though, what is their case? Is it just an offensive explosion for the last 2 months?
I don't think they have a case. Like I don't it would. That's what it would take. It would take KD playing like the MVP of the league. It would take Devin Booker going crazy. You'd need to be getting more out of Bradley Beal than you're already getting. Like they'd have to be the best offense in the NBA for them to have it. But I'm out on them.
All right, simple enough. Let's do a few seconds here on Minnesota. For me, it's as simple as their defense. Rudy Gobert, this is the worst season he's had since his rookie year, just from a defensive standpoint. I think some of that is an adjustment from, I think the fit next to Gat actually started working out pretty well at some point last year. Obviously, I think to be simple, I think it works sometimes. I think there's probably moments I could pick it apart, but for him to be a defensive center and be the anchor and then have Cat be like a stretch power forward, like it really did work stylistically for a while there. I just don't know offensively. I don't think this team, other than Ant, I just don't think they have enough consistent production outside of Ant. And I think that's my biggest fear. I think they'll figure themselves out defensively. I think they'll continue to get better. Teams still fear Rudy Gobert. That's still a thing in the regular season. Teams still know how to attack him differently. They'll have to attack him differently. I'm not sure I can build you a really strong case, but I didn't know you were going with the Clippers as your answer, but I knew that we'd go some other direction. But I would go with Minnesota strictly on the back of Ant and the fact that they're at least a defensive principled team.
I just think their offense is so far off, and they're getting so much out of Anthony Edwards. I mean, the man's shooting 44% from 3 on basically 10 attempts per game, something like that. Like he did everything he was supposed to do for making up for losing the spacing of Cat, right? You get a guy like Julius Randle who who dominates the ball, who doesn't space the floor as much. This team got worse. They can't space the floor, the whole 9 yards. What does Anthony Edwards do? He goes out and becomes arguably the best volume 3-point shooter in the league this season. I don't even think it's arguable. He's probably been the best volume 3-point shooter in the league this year, and it's still not enough to make this offense really go. I mean, an offensive rating right now, they're down, they're 14th, which isn't the worst, but I think that's probably their ceiling. You know what I mean? Like Julius Randle could get a little bit better as the season goes on and be a little bit more efficient, but with Ant playing like that, if I had to pick if Ant's gonna get better offensively from what he's been doing this year or get worse, like if I was a betting man, I'd bet on he takes a little bit of a step back for the second half of the year. I don't know if shooting at this level is sustainable for a full 82 games. So if they're only 14th in offensive rating now, I'd honestly be on the side of their offense is going to get worse for the second half of the year. And the defense, like you said, they have Rudy Gobert. It could get better. Like you said, Rudy's playing
They're third in
not
defensive
his
rating,
best
by the
ball.
way. It doesn't seem
Right.
like that night to night. Like there's nights where it just seems
It's
way
an eye
off.
test thing with Rudy. Yeah.
Correct. Yeah. You mentioned like Ant probably taking a dip. This is his last 5 games. That includes the All-Star break, of course. But just his last 5 games he played. Granted, 4 of them were at home. The one in the middle was at Cleveland. This is just the points. 23, 28, 44, 41, and 49. Like, again, whether he sustains it or not, fine. I'm just saying their offense will be continuously be built on the back of him. And
Yeah, for
I
sure.
believe in him as a player enough that if there's a team that can flip a script, if you're comparing the Clippers and the Timberwolves, I'm at least picking in that instance the better guy, like the one singular right now, the better player. And that's probably a very hard case to sell. But again,
No,
I
I
think after
get
we
it.
talk about it, though, is there really a team that could do this? I'm not convinced by any of them 100%, to be honest with you. The Clippers was a great case at the beginning, though.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, the Timberwolves, I think for them to do it, Ant would not only have to sustain what he's been doing, he'd have to take it up a notch. And I do believe like Anthony Edwards is going to be a top 5 player in this league for years to come. I don't know if he could put out that much better of an offensive output than he's been putting out so far this season. Like I don't know how much it improves. And then if you're telling me I got to rely on Julius Randle for this team to jump up in the standings like that, I'm gonna bet against it. Like
It's totally fair.
that's just what it
It's
is.
totally
Yeah,
fair.
yeah,
All right, I think we've good.
yeah. Like the Clippers are definitely the team that stands out to me, but even them, I don't like how much could you trust the team with Kawhi Leonard as the X factor? You probably can at all, honestly. The Warriors definitely have a good case just because they're so far down, so it should only be
Yeah,
up for them, but even them, they're another team. It's not as bad as the Suns, but like the roster construction's weird. It's
it really
weird.
is. It really does come down to like what guy you trust the most in this. All these
Right.
teams is one guy. We're like it. It could, and again, that's why the Timberwolves case wasn't great. The Warriors, like you said,
Like
it's a
Steph, for
respecting.
example.
It's a
Steph
respecting
has
him.
right.
Just
Steph hasn't played his best ball at all. So like if I'm gonna not who do I trust more? Who do I trust more to be better than what they've been this season? Steph, who isn't playing his best ball, and Anthony Edwards, who's been
fair.
shooting at an outrageous clip that probably isn't sustainable. I probably would say Steph would be better than what he has been throughout the course of the season so far. So I'd probably lean the Warriors over the Timberwolves just because of that. Even if Anthony Edwards is maybe a better basketball player overall than Steph Curry right now, I think Steph has more
Yeah.
room to grow for these last 35 games, 40 games.
I think to put a good bow on it, the Clippers at one point they were playing at I think at one point they were the 3 seed, not too long
Right.
ago, and so and again the difference right now of those 2 spots is 5 games. So I think the Grizzlies have a couple of those head to heads as well. I think they're the right answer. I think if we just had to go, sometimes there's multiple. Again, we kind of disrespected the East a little bit, but with Milwaukee, Detroit, Orlando, Miami, Atlanta, and Chicago, I'm just not convinced any of those teams. The lazy thing to do would be say Philadelphia because they are getting guys back. I look again. I'm with you. Like it's probably not done. I think this year sets them in a weird direction. Did they win last night against Boston? The fact that I don't even know that is
I think they lost.
Yeah, so even with them being
I think Boston had like a crazy shooting night.
That's just how you're not.
Yeah, they lost by 20.
Okay, so let's just go with the fact that Philly's probably better off just losing games at this point and figuring things out. All right. Speaking of teams that we think might contend, that was sort of a segue. I'm going to go through a realistic. So I want to do the exercise first. I like doing this. I'm like bringing out a lot of fun segments to do with you all at one time. These are normally separate podcasts, actually. So I like doing this where I think Grayson and I do this on a pod sometime like late April, early May. I'd go like, if X team won the title, I'm like, you stop me basically when you get to a point where you'd be absolutely shocked they won the title, just to kind of give us real tears and like kind of live. So we'll do them like rapid fire and then we'll discuss them. So I'll start in the East at the top. Cleveland, if they won the title, you would not be shocked. And like there would be, you'd be like cool with it. Like you'd be like, all right, cool. They won the title. Got it. Boston. Yep. Same thing. Right. The Knicks.
I'd be shocked.
100%. Like stop the tape.
I'd be shocked.
Okay. All right. We'll keep going.
To win the NBA finals, I'd be shocked.
Okay. Indiana.
Yeah, everyone else in the East.
Okay, so let's draw the line there. All right, we'll draw the line.
Actually, no. Wait. The Bucks.
Indiana won the Bucks. I was going to say
the Bucks. The Bucks. I wouldn't be shocked.
Okay, so the Bucks, Celtics, and Cavs would we have so far. Then we'll go to the West, and she said no one else, right? Because I don't think you're referring to Detroit or Orlando.
No.
Oklahoma City. No, right? We're good. Denver. Memphis.
Everyone else. Memphis down. Everyone else.
Okay. So we using this exercise, like, and when I say like there's a sliver of a chance if they won the championship, you'd be like, so even let's go down the list for a second. Let's drop the percentage down a little bit, right? Like if Houston won the championship, you'd be really like it'd be like 100%. I can't like this X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
Okay. What about the Lakers? What about the Lakers? Luka and LeBron?
Jackson Hayes. Come on. Alex Len.
It's a great counter. All right, we'll do one more. The Clippers. If they won the championship because of Kawhi did the Toronto thing again, like is it a foreseeable case? I mean, I'm not sure it is.
It's probably not.
Okay.
Like as things stand right now, I'd say I'd be shocked. When it happens, I'd be like, oh, well, it's Kawhi Leonard, probably. I probably wouldn't be as shocked. I think this team is, like I just said, this team has, we just talk about teams with terrible roster construction. This team has, they have a great team. Yeah. They're deep. They fit well together.
Guys play their roles really well. That's the thing I really liked about them. Guys have really understood their role.
All right.
So according to that exercise, Chris's contenders, as the banner I realized I never started at the beginning of the podcast for YouTube. Chris's were 3 segments in. Chris's contenders are officially there's 6 teams, which I think is the right number. Cleveland, Boston, Milwaukee. So we're skipping New York there. That's one we'll talk about in a second. Oklahoma City, Denver, and Memphis. The one I want to start with is Memphis because team.
Memphis. No. Memphis isn't in there.
Okay.
Memphis and down. Yeah.
So it's 5.
Memphis.
All right. So it's Oklahoma City, Denver, Cleveland, Boston, and Milwaukee. By the way, I think that's the right 5. I'm with you. I think we've officially hit the All-Star break and went draw the line in the sand. These 5 teams won the championship. Not a single person would be like arguing profusely against how it happened. Is I think a weird way to think about it. So there's 25 teams that were like, cool, whatever. There's not a real reason. So I'm glad you said Memphis. Let's do Milwaukee. Is the case as simple as Giannis is still a top 5 player in the world?
Yeah.
That's literally the case.
For a playoff run, he could be the best player in the world. That's the case. He's a guy, like, it's similar to Jokic and the Nuggets, I think, like, I know this is a Bucks thing, but the Nuggets, I think, as a team have exceeded a lot of people's expectations for them because a lot of people thought they were going to take a step back, losing the guys they lost. But no one was ready to say Denver isn't a contender because they have Nikola Jokic. I feel the same way about Milwaukee. As long as they have Giannis Antetokounmpo and a competent cast around him, they should be a contender.
Look, Dame being second leading scorer at 25.5 a game is something that you can hang your hat on. Obviously, defensively, teams are going to seek him out. They'll be a weird team down the stretch because as we recorded this, I think yesterday is when it was announced, Bobby Portis is missing the last 25 games which I think would put him back for like the final 3 or regular season games or something like that. So he'll have like 3 regular season games to really get his legs back under him before a playoff run. As we know, they make the playoffs. They play a team like the Heat. They've obviously lost that series before. But Chris Middleton's obviously having a down year. He's reduced down to a role player now. Brook Lopez is getting older. Gary Trent's an interesting.
I like the Kuzma fit with them. I like Kuzma. I think
offensively, I do.
Yeah, because Brook Lopez is still who he is, but it gives you the ability to play small with Giannis at the 5, which he's shown he could be great at. And I think Kuzma is a really damn good small ball forward. Just people don't talk about it enough. The impact of rebounding on basketball games. It really doesn't get spoken about enough. And I think Kyle Kuzma, for his position, he's a great rebounder. He's inconsistent at times. He's not a great defender, but he's a damn good rebounder, and that got to mean something.
So, 8.2 per game, 8.3 for Bobby Portis, and so he's probably going to get to a double-double to finish the season because of Bobby Portis' absence. That'll be really good for. I think that'll help his confidence too going into the playoffs. Yeah. Like, don't get me wrong, teams like he's an athletic player and on defense, but teams are going to put the Bucks in ball screens, and it's just going to be it's just going to be chicken at that point. And I hate to use that a lazy analogy, but like teams are just going to find. And even look, I love Brook Lopez, but like when he gets back on his heels and is falling back towards the paint on a drive, like it's just teams are going to expose it. Yeah. I know he's really good still, but that's the fear for me. But Giannis at the 5, like you said, that could change things. He averages 1.3 blocks a game, leads the second on the team. Like I could see them figuring things out defensively. You obviously have the Doc Rivers, we'll call it conundrum to be nice. But like Dame and Giannis, if you're just going off like what can win me a playoff series, they would be 2 of the best 3 players on the floor most of the time they play in the East, especially. Yeah. I think that's like the main case for. I'm glad we did more than just it's Giannis and move on. I'm glad we at least kind of kept going for a minute there. That made me feel better.
I mean, for this team to really have a chance, like it's not like obviously Giannis does have to be spectacular, but you need Dame playing his best ball, and you need everyone around them. I don't even want to say playing great, but at least engaged and locked in on the defensive side of the ball. Don't be awful on defense. And I think Giannis and Dame are capable of doing the rest.
So, well, I'll ask it this way, since you're talking about the contenders. There's only so much. I feel like there's only so much we can talk about, right? But it's this best team. This is this best team. Who do you like better right now between Cleveland or Boston to win the championship?
The easy answer is Boston. It should be Boston. They're the team that won it last year. I really like what Cleveland has going on, though. I really do. I love the DeAndre Hunter pickup. I think Evan Mobley, he's not being talked about enough. He got the recognition as an all-star, but he's really not being spoken about enough. I think he's been pretty clearly to me. We talked about defensive player of the years before. He's been pretty clearly to me the second best defender in all of basketball. And I think Cleveland, it's kind of like what we just talked about with Steph and the Warriors. Cleveland's been so damn great. And Donovan Mitchell is not playing his best ball. Like I know Donovan Mitchell has another notch he could go to, and he typically gets to that notch in the postseason. He had that bad playoff run against the Mavs when Luka missed the first 2 games. But other than that, Donovan Mitchell has been one of the best playoff performers of this generation. So I know Donovan has another notch he could get to in there. The fear with the Cavs is just how far can 2 small guards who aren't great defenders really take you? And, those guys have been trying their ass off. I'm not going to say they've been elite because they haven't, but Darius Garland's been doing his thing. He's been trying out there. Donovan's been trying out there on the defensive end. So they have great role players. Shout out Ty Jerome. Like, he's been great for them. The shooting around them's been really great. Like, I really like what they have going on, but we just talked about it with the Bucks having 2 of the best 3 players on the court at all times. I think in a matchup of the Cavs and the Celtics probably have the 2 best players on the floor. And same thing I just mentioned with Donovan Mitchell. Like, I know Tatum could get to those levels too. We've seen the man have 50 in a game 7. Like, Tatum should be the best player in that series. And there's really no reason to believe Jaylen Brown shouldn't be the second best player in that series. This is the guy who won the Finals MVP. I'd go with Boston right now, but like Boston in 7, honestly. I think it's a lot closer than people are making it out to be.
I think that's the right answer. I think not the Boston part's the right answer because right now I would have Cleveland just because of like the way this team. Like I think the coaching from Kenny Atkinson has been. I mean, he's coach of the year. I don't think it's even close. The Evan Mobley thing too. They're 9-1 in their last 10. By the way, thought that was interesting to note. The one thing to note about Mobley, I voted for him for most improved player last podcast. Like I just the stats. People are going to look at. He's not going to win the award. Let me be abundantly clear. The stats, like he's only basically up in points per game by like 3 points per game. All the other stats are basically the same, if not worse. But when you watch that team play, when you watch that Boston game that they played a few weeks ago, I want to say it was just after Christmas. I'd have to look at the exact date again. When you watch that game, obviously Jerome had like that incredible final 5 minutes where he just lifted him apart from deep. But Mobley's offensive impact in the final 5 minutes of a game now is night and day what he was last year. It's to the point where like they're putting the ball in his hands in those final 5 minutes. And I know that doesn't solve the Jaren Allen him problem, right? In the playoffs. I know it doesn't. It's just like we say with Rudy Gobert every year. Have we figured out the Rudy Gobert playoff problem? Probably, right? Every year we think, okay, probably this is the year. And they don't. But I believe in Atkinson enough to say, I know he's an offensive guy, but he knows how to put those guys in the right positions. I'm not sure I have the answer, and I'm not sure I have the ability to explain it. But I think that there's something different about clearly 45-10, best record they've had with Donovan Mitchell, like it through this point in the season. Clearly something's right, and I think it's Mobley's ascension. I think it's guys playing their roles better. I know they gave up Niang in that trade. There's guys that they gave up that have been really important for them building to this future. But like you said, DeAndre Hunter, like that playoff piece that they can stick on somebody like a Jaylen Brown so that Strus doesn't immediately have to be a defender that's picked on. Like I think the dynamic of this team, hopefully these pieces can really fit and mold and we can see them continue this because that'll give us a better idea who they really are is once they understand where Hunter's going to fit the playoff series. I think we'll be able to predict them a little bit better.
Hunter's a guy who should fit, like no matter where he ended up going. You know, obviously he went to the best team in the East, but he's a guy who should fit in pretty seamlessly into any team in the NBA with his skill set. Like it shouldn't take long to get him integrated. So
they remind me of those Jazz teams a lot. I know that's a lazy like
we spoke about this on the podcast actually the other day. That someone said that, maybe Matt said that or Dean said the same thing.
Sounds like something Matt would say.
It's different though. I don't think those Jazz teams had second and third best offensive players like Evan Mobley and Darius Garland. Honestly.
No, they absolutely didn't. No,
like
think about it too. The lazy answer is Mitchell's on both those teams, right? The lazy, easy reason about the comparison. But Mitchell is 1,000 times better than he was back then, and he had 50 in some of those playoff games. I'm just thinking from like his development as a player because guys get better not only on the stat sheet, they get better from an understanding standpoint of things. They get better defensive positioning, things that just continuously get developed over their career. That I think really helped make some of these guys who are like really good, but just under the kind of top tier in the league. And I think we would call Donovan Mitchell that, right? Like I don't think he's a top 15 player most years. He's a top 20. I think he's just below that all NBA consistent every year tier. And for him to be, like you said, not having his best season, but still be somebody that at any given moment you can go, he took over that playoff game against Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, who are the two better players on the floor at all times. That is night and day, the difference that I think he could do it back then, but like you said, they've got more reliable pieces to help him out. So, anything on Oklahoma City or Denver before we try to fix the All-Star game and get out of here?
I'll ask you. I think I know your answer, but who's your favorite out west right now?
It's actually not as easy as you think. I'm curious. I'll answer it, and then I'm curious who you thought I was going to say. I can't sit here and tell you with a straight face that I can't think Denver's still still the team that can do it because they're getting Jamal Murray elite level production. The guys are starting to understand their roles better. They're getting better defensively. And oh, by the way, they have the best player in the world. So right now, very, very, very uncomfortably, I'm going to say Denver. But Oklahoma City has the best player in the league this year that no one can stop, who's a top 5 defender right now. He'll be off into the first team. That alone makes me feel uncomfortable. So very uncomfortably, I'm going to answer Denver.
I thought you were going to say OKC. honestly.
I probably should. Anybody in their right mind probably should, but I can't doubt the fact that Denver has this iteration of this team has been together for this many years. They understand what it takes to get there. Oklahoma City Thunder, that was the first time they did that last year. Truly.
Yeah.
And I think they learned a lot. I think like that Dallas series, granted, they don't think PJ Washington shoots 60% from the corner threes. Like, I get that. Like that doesn't change the whole series. But I think they'll learn from those mistakes. But if it's Denver and Oklahoma City Thunder in the Western Conference Finals, like we all hope it is, hopefully there's no Luka Dallas type of year. I know he's not there anymore. But I'm just like, I just hope that there's not like a team that you, by the way, called. I was wondering if you were gonna have me get that out, right? But you called that last year around this time. Not that they would make the Western Conference Finals or the finals, but that they would be a team that could do that. Shout out to you for that. But I mean, if it's those two teams, I'm gonna pick the team that knows how to do it when they're there. Like if it's that close, I'll pick Denver.
Yeah, and I think it's again like Shea's been one of, if not the best player in basketball this year. But
this year he's been the best. Like, it's him. Like
I don't know, man.
It's crazy.
Like what Jokic is doing is not normal either, though.
I know Jokic is having a all-time season. He keeps
like, yeah. What I was gonna say is, I just like this is a guy who's been to the mountaintop. He's a multiple-time MVP winner. He's won the ring. He keeps getting better. It doesn't make sense. To me, Jokic is having the best year of his career right now. And I know his defense has taken a little bit of a step back from where it was. And he was playing some damn good defense, the previous 2 years before this in terms of just being in the right position. But what he's doing offensively right now is just, it's not normal. And Shea, I don't have questions if his game will translate to the playoffs. Like, we saw him last year have a great playoff run against the Pelicans and the Mavs. But Jokic, I know Jokic he's going to turn it up a notch in the playoffs. And realistically, this team was an anomaly of a shooting series from Jokic away from probably winning it last year. I'm going to be honest. Like, they shouldn't have lost to Minnesota. Jokic I don't know what the percents were, but he shot terrible from three in that series. I think he shot 1 for 9 in the closeout game where they blew the 20-point lead. And he's having his best shooting season of his career this year. So, like, when that guy's on the court, I don't know, man. And Shea's such a great player, but Jokic has that LeBron-like thing where it's like you give this guy seven games to adapt and figure you out. Like he's gonna figure it out. He's gonna figure it out. He's the smartest player I've ever seen, not named LeBron James. Honestly,
what's crazy too is like it's not even about him figuring it out in a series. It's the guys around him. Are we going to get Jamal Murray? Like Jamal Murray and Shea will be an incredible matchup if they play each other in the Western Conference Finals. Like it's all those guys, especially those young guys, taking a step up to the plate and saying we can help get this done. Because as you know, like when they won the championship 2 years ago, the guys that stepped up were the role players. Those were like Jokic was the consistent Jokic every night. We knew what was coming. I think that's going to be the difference. Is all these guys. Like I know it's a kind of a lazy thing to say, but like can Michael Porter Jr. shoot 40% from three and be an effective defender, which we know he's not on a night-to-night basis. Can he be that for 4 rounds? That's going to be really hard to figure out.
It's interesting because the question is, can the Nuggets supporting cast do what we've seen them do in the past, but haven't really shown over the past year and a half really consistently?
It's a new one. It's a newer rotation too. That helps.
Right. Versus what can the Thunder's other guys do who we really haven't seen on a big stage ever yet. Like who are the, like I said, Shea, there should be no questions about Shea Gilgeous-Alexander and who he is in a playoff setting. But you look at J-Dub, he wasn't the best version of himself last year in the playoffs, especially against the Mavericks. You look at Chet, he wasn't the best version of himself last year in the playoffs. And then you have all these role players, you added Hartenstein and Caruso, who those two guys, I'm pretty certain of who they are. I don't think being in a playoff series changes who those guys are. Same thing with a Lou Dort, but can Isaiah Joe give you consistent shooting? Can Aaron Wiggins give you consistent shooting and be who he's been all season? So Case and Wallace, same story. It's like, who are these guys when the lights really get bright? So it's interesting.
The two things I would say to that would be Alex Caruso, all-time vet. I know he's not been in this playoff series in a while, but Alex Caruso, I think, is a guy I would trust more than anybody on the Nuggets, even though they've done it. I say anybody on the Nuggets, I mean like outside of the top three, basically. So insert Aaron Gordon or however you want to figure that out. Because they're a better team with Gordon. Gordon's been great this year. And then Hartenstein's been incredible. They've sustained success because of him, because Chet's been out for so long, and they've been able to just put him right in there. So I think those two guys will be really interesting to just see how the Thunder take themselves up to another level. Really quick, I know we got to fix the All-Star game. To your point about Jokic, like he's shooting 44% from almost, let's just say 45. It's 44.9 on 4.7 attempts. Like what he's doing now, it's not like I know he's turning the ball over 3.1, like a little high for his standards. 29.7 points per game, 12.7 rebounds, 10.2 assists, 1.8 steals. Like it's just, and that's just the stats that we see every night. Like I'm not even thinking about like stuff off the page that are analytically even more beneficial to him. Like he's been number one in like every advanced stat for like the last decade. It's stupid. All right, really quick. By the way, this is all you. I don't have a fix for the All-Star game. I am at a loss for words. I'm at a loss for really anything that is of substance when it comes to this topic anymore, because I think we've come so far away from the NBA trying things. Like what they did this year, I'm sorry, it was terrible. And all around I hate to be the old guy, screaming, get off my lawn. Like I hate to be that guy. But like even when the defense was bad in the All-Star game, it was still really cool to watch all the best players in the world play each other. Like, is that far-fetched to think? Like the All-Star game's been bad since I was a kid. Like I'm just making that abundantly clear. But like we don't have to try things like astronomically different to try to fix it. I think there's ways to fix it around the edges. Where the dunk contest and the three-point contest, people are always going to watch. We don't need a 3-point ball. Like there's little things that they kept doing and changing that I just don't think we needed. And then as you saw, probably the amount of time that was spent on the actual game versus all the other stuff, like that ruined it for me. I was flipping around channels the whole night, and like every time I'll come back, they were doing something that wasn't basketball related. I hate to be beating the same point that's been beat the last week, but like I'm just at a loss for words, and I'm just bringing it up just to make just to see if anybody that I trust in the basketball space has a good answer. And it sounds like you don't either when you shook your head earlier.
Yeah, I mean the boys said Dean was very strong on this because Dean's a big baseball guy. So he was saying make it for East versus West, and the winner gets home court advantage in the finals, which I think would definitely make the guys try a little harder. But then it's also like,
how many guys are really affected by that?
Right, I'm Jason Tatum, and I'm relying on Trae Young to not be shooting half court shots so I could get home court advantage in the finals. You know what I mean?
It would. Looking at it like that, though, that would change something. I'm with you.
Yeah, but then things get a little murky because then it's not a competition between the East and West. It's a competition between the guys at the top of the East and the guys at the bottom of the East. Like, hey, man, stop pulling from half court. So I think that's an interesting fix. It's
been brought up a lot too.
It's definitely the one that makes the most sense in terms of making things more competitive. Like I think that's the easy answer to make things more competitive. I think it would off the bat, but I mean, I agree with you. This was the worst All-Star weekend, All-Star Sunday night I can remember ever watching, and it was the presentation that just did it for me. It was the main thing for me is we all have these social media brains where we're scrolling, we're listening, we're believing everything we read on the internet, whether we like to say that or not. We are, we read stuff, and that just subconsciously becomes our opinions about things. If I'm watching a basketball game and I'm looking at my phone at the same time, so I'm not really watching, but I'm listening, and I'm hearing Shaq go on and on about why Bol is better than Wemby. My opinion from the game is that Bol is better than Wemby. You know what I mean? And when I'm not looking directly at the screen and watching in the background, I hear Kevin Hart bashing the product, bashing the players. I'm gonna get on my little Twitter after the game and I'm gonna bash the product and bash the players. So I think the presentation, not only was it awful in terms of just the extra stuff they did, which I'll get into in a second, but the commentary team just and I know that's a lot of people's biggest problem with the TNT guys, but it was on full display. I mean, you have Draymond, the Rising Stars guys. Like that wasn't the point of what they did. The point of what they did was to make it a little bit more competitive, and it did just that because the OGs versus the Rising Stars game was the most competitive game of the night. So it did what it was supposed to do, and we should be celebrating that. But instead, we have Draymond just saying that those guys don't belong there. So that's our opinion. Those guys don't belong there. So I thought it was just the NBA can only do so much with the changes. But if the guys, who they're employing to talk about these things and promote these things are promoting it as bad, then everyone's opinions are just going to be that it's bad. Like I thought the format for the All-Star game was honestly cool. I enjoy the target score because at the end of the day, if it's close within the last 10 points, like guys are subconsciously going to try a little bit. If it's, if we're playing a 4-quarter game and, people aren't playing defense throughout the game, if the game's a 50-point game by the fourth quarter, yeah, the team that's losing by 50 is not going to try in the fourth quarter. Like, it's over. So I like the target score. But again, I think the presentation was awful with just the way the commentary team and all the guests and everyone was just talking about the products. And then, like you mentioned, I mean, we had, 30 minutes of basketball on a 3-hour broadcast? That's unacceptable. That's unacceptable. Like, cool that guy won, $100K in a Mr. Beast video. Like, that was cool. That was funny. It was quick, too. It didn't take up that much time. But then we're stopping a game in the middle of the game to say goodbye to the TNT guys. Just after we're all ready for it to be over, honestly. After we sat through a bunch of commercials, it's the last game. We're, ready to see them play. It's the matchup we wanted, too, for, in this format. We got the world guys versus the USA guys, the OGs. It was the matchup we wanted, and then the game, and even in the building, you could feel it. The energy just gets sucked out of the game and sucked out of the building, and then the end of that game was terrible. So I thought the presentation was the main thing for me. This one, like, I know we could say stuff about the players not trying, but to me, it's an all-star game. These guys are playing a long, grueling 82-game season. It's their one break. Obviously, they're not going to try as much as we'd like them to in the All-Star game. Like, there's no fix to that. Yep. There's no fix to that. And that's not what it should be. We should just be getting a few possessions here and there like we used to. A possession here and there of Kobe Bryant sitting in a chair against LeBron James. Kobe wasn't trying defensively for 48 minutes in his All-Star games, but he'd give us moments. And I feel like that's all you could ask for in an All-Star game is some moments. So, yeah.
I have nothing to add. Couldn't have been said better. I genuinely believe that because at the end of the day, like, I wanted, like, just bring us full circle moment for here. We led with the hockey thing, right? Do you have to get to a point where the product is captivating enough? And again, I know the guy's not trying. I think is a really interesting thing to figure out because even in the Elam ending, and one of the first people I interviewed doing this was Dr. Elam and got to hear the perspective about why that ending is what it is. It's an incredible idea in principle. The problem in that setting is that even in a game where they're not going to try for 3 quarters and the score could get really lopsided because these are some of the best players these are the best players in the world scoring at a high level. 30-point leads are very capable of happening. It just is what it is. One guy gets hot, then the Elam ending doesn't matter because you have a target score. Oh, by the way, you're already at 30, so you're 30 closer. It's like It never really happened. I get that. Like the first year we had it. It was a great ending. The issue people had with it was Anthony Davis made 2 free throws, or I think he made the second end of 2 free throws to win the game. And it's like, I would rather have that because if he misses both those free throws, then we at least have a rebound and a scramble towards the other end, or maybe even offensive rebound, or then you have like things that play off of that, knowing that they're one point away. I think like the first year showcased it. I was like, okay, if this is it, they're going to have this forever, and this is going to be awesome. We've just come so far removed now from what we saw. Like you mentioned Kobe, like that Kobe Jordan thing from early in his career. Like it was one singular moment in the grand scheme of a terrible game. But like you said, we don't have those moments anymore. They've been completely stripped from us where the best players in the world don't get to do some of the best things on the best platforms. Like that's what made the gold medal thing, or I guess it was the silver medal game the qualifying game to go to the gold medal game that Steph had that stupid like 7-0 run on his own or whatever, right? We were all watching that at 4:00 on like a Wednesday because Steph Curry and LeBron James and all these guys were taking that seriously for the most part to win a gold medal, to win something that matters. And so I'm not saying that there's any kind of great fix, but we were all, I'm not saying it's international. I'm not saying anything like that. I don't have an answer and I don't have a solution, which is the part of the problem. But like once all of, I had some college basketball things I had to follow last night for the hockey game. This is kind of where I'll land the plane. I had a lot of things I had to bounce around and watch last night and do and cover. And as I was prepping this podcast, but once I missed the first goal, I saw the Canada's first goal. I missed our first goal for the U.S. But once all the other college basketball stuff had finished that I was doing reports on, I did not change the channel for anything for that Canada-U.S. game because it was captivating. It was exciting. I get there was a patriotism part of it, but they did everything right where they're going to still give these guys a week off. They don't play hockey again until Saturday, till I guess recording this tomorrow. But like they're giving these guys a full break, and they gave us one of the most captivating All-Star games we've seen in I don't know 20 years. It's ridiculous. Like it's something that if the NBA needs to use that as their frame of reference and do whatever they can to now at this point, I think you'll agree with this. It's saving the product now. It's not even fixing it. It's saving the life of what's left, which I think there is none. So I hate to end like that. I really do. But I think the All-Star game is dying, and I think it's just we offered as best a solution as we could. And part of the solution is complaining about it until they try to fix it even more. I have no faith in that. So
yeah.
Let's end on a better note. Plug away. Anything you guys are working on, got coming up, podcasts, where they can find you, whatever you got it.
Yeah. Ball Game Podcasts on YouTube. I think Ball Game Pod on TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, all that fun stuff. But we got a bunch of stuff for the NBA lined up covering the end of this NBA season. We're going to do something out of your book. We're going to do live reactions after all the NBA Finals games, hopefully. So
you guys might be taking the torch on that one because I got a new job and I don't know how I'm going to pull that off this year. So I might be watching y'all's. And it's just, Grayson and I, we're 2 years in a row now with literally only getting 5 games. I'm just so sick of this. I'm like, I just want a 6-game run, but it's really fun. You guys should do it. I think it's an incredible way to just absorb. How fast can you really figure something out in 20 minutes? It's kind of interesting. So
yeah, we were going to do one directly after the Super Bowl too, but we were out and events transpire, so we did it the Monday after. But and then a bunch of fantasy football stuff. If you guys play fantasy football, we're gonna really dive into. We're gonna try. I don't want to spoil too much. We're gonna try and get out rankings, like legitimate rankings on a website for you guys to buy. So if you guys need rankings going into your drafts and stuff like that. And then just a bunch of dynasty fantasy football content with the NFL draft coming up. So that's my bread and butter. I've been doing my scouting. I'm actually got to scout some running backs after this, watch some film. But yeah, so a bunch of fun stuff with us coming up. And yeah.
Love it. Everything for you guys will be linked in the description below. I'll just throw the link tree in there so that people can pick whatever. It's got a lot going on. I think the 1K hoodie link is still up. I don't know if that's still a thing, but people can grab them.
It's still a thing. We have new merch actually coming out soon. I'll plug that. This is the first summit that we haven't even announced it yet. We actually finished that last night. So we're gonna do new merch at some point in these next few weeks. So that link will probably be replaced.
All right. Breaking news here on the 2 Pointers podcast. I love it. I'll have once that's officially out, I'll put it in the link in the description. But for now, the link tree will be there. People can pick out what they want. Go subscribe. Spotify, Apple, YouTube, all the platforms. Look, it's been fun. NBA season obviously cranking down here towards the end. I know your Tar Heels haven't had a year that they would have hoped for so far. Neither of my
the run starts now. Starts now.
They've done it before. Literally the first year under Davis, they made the freaking championship game after being an 8 seed. So you just never know, man. March Madness is right around the corner. I hope you guys get a chance to enjoy it. I know you got a lot going on.
Before we end, I mean, you could end the recording. I don't know if you need to put this in the podcast. Who's winning the national championship?
I think Auburn's going to win it. I think they're just a class above everyone else.
Yeah.
If I had to give you
I'd agree.
Answer. Yeah, they're a class above. I think it's Auburn. I think it's Duke. I think this is without looking at KenPom to make sure I'm in relative order. I know Houston's at the top there. I outside of Auburn and Duke, I have questions about every team that can prevent
every other team.
winning
Yeah,
a
I
national
agree.
championship.
I'd be like we just did that segment about who we'd be shocked if they won. I know it's March Madness and anything could happen. Where things stand right now, I'd be pretty shocked if it wasn't Auburn or Duke.
What's crazy though is honestly that if we did the same analogy for college basketball, I know we're throwing this in at the end, but like my list might be like 20 teams if we like did the like once we got to 0%.
That's how it
really, I
always
couldn't
it is.
believe it.
Yeah, that's how
But
it
that's what's
always
nice
is.
though. The parity this year, even though those are the two top teams, like if St. John's won a national championship, I wouldn't like this. The chance of me being 100, it would not be 0 for me. Rick Pitino done it before with a team this year. Last team
definitely
to
wouldn't
win
be 0.
the last team to win a NCAA championship with a team that I think it was like below 33% from 3 was Rick Pitino in 2013 with Louisville. They shot like 32.9 or something like that. It was something stupid. And they're like 33-ish this year. So it's like, I don't know. I'm just giving you one team out of like a hat here, right? But like even Arizona, Gonzaga, Iowa State, like you go down the list and all these teams have a legitimate chance. But I'm with you. It's Duke or Auburn. That was a lot of fun. Appreciate the time.
Always is.
Like subscribe to the Ball Game Podcast, everything that they have going on. Don't forget on the way out, the 2 Pointers is still sponsored by SeatGeek. Link in the top of the description. $20 off your first purchase. If you're going to basketball, football's over. So I got to get out of that. I got to get out of that routine.
Yeah.
But basketball games, NCAA tournament games, those tickets are already actually pretty cheap. So $20 extra off your first purchase. A lot of great women's college basketball going on right now. I'll be in attendance for a Play for K game tonight. So if you're going to be all over the country going to those games, you can get $20 off your first purchase. Link in the top of the description for that. On behalf of Chris, everyone at the Ball Game Podcast, enjoy the rest of the NBA season. This has been the 2 Pointers Podcast. I'm Trevor Everett, and we will see you next time.